Hi, everyone. Welcome to your September NYCP Talking Circle. We'll just wait a couple seconds to let everybody get their audio on, and then we'll begin. If you could go ahead in the chat, just say hello. Let us know where what the weather's like and what's going on in your neck of the woods. Hey, Allison. Okay, a few more people just getting in. Let's get everybody going. We've got a lot of great content to cover. We're going to be doing some sharing, so I want to make sure everybody's on and ready to participate. Hi, Roxanne. Hi, Jen and Gwendolyn. Nice to see you folks. Thanks for joining. Okay, it looks like everyone has their audio on. And aloha, Clara. Nice to see you. Oh, beautiful, cloudy, rainy skies. Me too. I have that too.
Nice to see you.
Oh, and sunny Central Oregon. Yay. Oh, sweltering in Texas. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's rock and roll. Again, welcome to your September NYCP Talking Circle. Before we get started, I'm just gonna go through the disclaimer. For some reason, my audio is not working on the disclaimer, so you get me reading it to you. So here's our disclaimer. This presentation was produced under the U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises Incorporated. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred. Oh, there we go. Not as great as Sarah's, but I tried my best to make it that disclaimer sound fun. So for today, we're going to be going over some no-cost extensions, just doing a little update around there. We're going to have some lessons learned. I've already sort of got two of your peers to start the conversation around what lessons they've learned, and then we're going to open it up. I really want to hear from all of you folks about the lessons that you've learned, particularly because a lot of you are going to be either ending a current uh, no cost extension or ending the fiscal year 2018 grant, or maybe even moving on to a no cost extension. So really want to, it's an opportunity for you to share what you've learned along the way. And then we're going to dive into final performance reports. I know many of you have requested no cost extensions, and so this may not be applicable to you, but also there are many of you who are either ending your maybe a fiscal year 2017, your no cost extension is ending, and so you will be needing to do a final performance report. And then there are several of you who are fiscal year 2018 grantees who are actually completing your grant this year, and so you're going to want to make sure you stay on for the to go through the final performance report, because NYCP is the only grant program within OIE this year that will be ending and needing to do final performance reports. This will be the only training that we are providing for the completion of final performance reports. So you can, I hope for the fiscal year 2017 as well as the fiscal year 2018, those who are completing the grant, you are going to want to stay on to the end. The others of you who are fiscal year 2018, who may be getting a no-cost extension. It really depends on the length of your no-cost extension. If you are going to be ending in maybe 6 to 9 months, you probably do want to stay on because this information will be pertinent. But we will be probably doing other final performance report trainings in the next year. So you can kind of gauge where you sit in there. And then, of course, at the end, we have question and answers. So let's get into the content. First, we're going to talk about no cost extension grantees. I know Donna has gotten back to those of you who have submitted your requests for no cost extensions. We have had for fiscal year 2018 quite a bunch. I don't know the exact number that has been currently approved. Maybe Sarah or Donna, do you know how many have been currently approved for a no cost extension?
Yeah, I think we have around 27, 26.
27, 26. Great. Thanks, Donna. I forgot to mention, yeah, Donna is on, Donna Bustle is your program officer is on. Forgot to say, hi, Donna. So again, so if we have about that many no cost extensions going into the next year. With the no cost extension period, not only are you expected to spend down your funds and complete your program activities, you're also expected to continue to participate in technical assistance events such as the talking circle and the project directors meeting. You will also still have access to things like coaching and office hours each month. So again, you can still schedule a coaching session during your no cost extension period. Again, we want you to be able to attend talking circles, participate in the project directors meeting, and participate in office hours. So prior to starting your no cost extension, you'll need to look if you and determine if you need to submit an APR update. If you reported 999 on your APR that you submitted in May, then you will definitely need to submit an APR update. If you during the excuse me, during the no cost extension period, you will not need to submit an APR. But in 120 days after the end of your approved no cost extension, you will be required to submit an FPR. I haven't been able to see sort of what the duration of the no cost extension. Donna, do you have any sort of gauge about, is it mostly 12 months or are there some that are 6 or 9 months?
The majority that we have are 12 months. I
Okay.
believe there are 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 that are lower
Less.
than 12 months.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so, I'm sorry. So, definitely what you want to do, whenever your no cost extension period ends, 120 days after that, you will be required to submit your FPR. So we're going to get right into your folks sharing. And so let's talk about, and I'd love to hear from all of you about lessons learned. What I've done this talking circle is I've reached out to two of your peers and asked them if they could go ahead and start the conversation. They're conversation starters and share what their lessons learned. And so Oklahoma State Department of Education, if you could come off of mute, Jackie, and I think Kita, if she's here, can come off of mute and go ahead and share your lessons learned.
All right. I'm not showing mood on my end, so can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. I am Jackie White, Executive Director of American Indian Education for the state of Oklahoma. And when she asked about lessons learned, I can tell you that no matter if you're a brand new program or you have inherited a program that you know basically nothing about, you must know your audience and you must know what's going and what available resources are. And I think that is something that we learned quickly, that we had to, I call them road trips, go to those communities and find out what resources were out there. Most of the time, as a long-term educator, we don't do that. We assume we know, but there is so much to offer in our communities, but you never know that unless you go to that community. Oklahoma has 541 school districts, and every school district is different, and every community is different. So I truly believe that the lesson that we've learned and we're practicing now, because we in fact, Keita and I talked about it yesterday, we want to continue this mission we have with serving the Native American students in Oklahoma with opportunities for college and career. And I just got off the phone with a gentleman, 41 years old, who wants to go to college, wants to get a career, just hung up. And I jokingly said, now, if that screen pops up, I have to get off. But there's a gentleman who said, you know, life has changed for me, and wanted to know what to do first. So I think that we are, we're missionaries for the cause. We're out there. So that's my brief, that you have to know your audience and you have to know your resources, but you must know your community. Keita, you want to? Can't hear you.
Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. And I just want to kind of piggyback off of what Jackie said is, you know, it's creating that buy-in and understanding your audience is very important. You can't go in assuming that you know what your districts or whomever it is that you're working with, you can't go in with this mindset that you know exactly what they need. You're going to have to tailor whatever resources that you have available to them to fit their needs and create that buy-in. So you'll have an understanding of the audience that you're working with and the individuals who you're working with, especially the administrators in the school. Allow them that time to come in and understand the tools and the resources that you do have available to them. And so they can understand the goals that you're trying to reach. And you kind of have to create this image for them so they'll understand, and it'll be easier for you guys in the long run to be able to communicate. And also, whatever progress that you're making, they need to be aware of those things, because sometimes I think some of the issues that we've had is, you know, in the past is we've gone in and we do all of these things, but I think that there was a lack in communication and bringing the schools in and showing them what progress has actually been made at the top level. I would say, like superintendents and the principals at the schools. We work really closely with the Indian ed directors, and they know, and you don't always know that that's being translated. So bringing in all of those individuals who need to know and need to understand that progress is being made because the need is there. Bring them in, let everyone that you work with kind of understand what's happening, and also give them a chance to speak to you about what their needs are as well. So I agree with what Jackie said as well.
And I think a real important item for anyone on this Zoom, don't assume you may be there forever. And I think that was the failure of several things that happened with our program, was the transition of people. They left, and you must, no matter who you are, leave good documentation so that person that comes in behind you can pick up and keep going. And I know I didn't know Keita, but 2 days, and I said, we're on the road. You know, I want faces with names. And I also, she said something that's a real important item. You have to make sure all of the administrators and the teachers buy into it. it only takes one bad apple to turn a program into something negative. So you really want to work with that individual, helping them understand the transition. And it hurt us, but at the same time, we revamped. We're getting great. I looked at a video yesterday that Keita showed me from Rose State, and the joy and the excitement those kids had. And I call kids because they're younger than I am, on the program and opportunities. And we already have some new opportunities already in play that we're going to try it this next year. So.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing some really crucial areas. Our next conversation starter is Phoenix Indian Center. If you could come off of mute and share your lessons learned.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Warren Coons. I am the Director of Programs here at the Phoenix Indian Center. And I'm not sure, I'm sort of new here and with the grant and with the organization. I've only been with us for about 7 months now. And my co-presenter is Melanie, and she's going to be, she's actually the program manager for our youth development program. So she'll tack on a couple of stuff here in a minute. But, you know, Phoenix Indian Center, in case you don't know, we are the oldest American Indian nonprofit organization in the United States. We are celebrating our 75th anniversary this year. So we're excited to have been here this long. And so some of our services that we provide here, if you're not familiar with who we are, is we do serve the Phoenix metropolitan area, which is huge, which is large. It's probably over 125,000 plus American Indians, Native Americans living here in the Valley that we have that's our service population that we're trying to have to reach. And the services that we provide here in general is not only our youth development services, but we also provide an array of prevention services for middle-aged students, our middle school students, I should say. And then we also have a work development program here where we try to educate and get people back to work. And then we also provide cultural enrichment services to preserve cultural history and languages, and presentations on cultural, just whole heritage, I guess you would say, about different activities that we provide. So that's sort of who we are as Phoenix Indian Center. So I'm going to turn it over to Melanie now, and she'll talk about the program and what we do with the grant.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Melanie Mariano. I am the Youth Program Development Manager at the Phoenix Indian Center. I've been in my role now for going on about a year and a half. Before I worked here, I worked for my own Native American tribe, the Cowlitz Indian tribe in the state of Washington, Mount St. Helens area. And I was the youth program manager there. So my spouse and I moved down this way to be closer to his family. And I was fortunate enough to take on the position. However, I inherited this program in the middle of a grant cycle, and the program had been running without an actual manager for about a year before I came on. So there were a lot of challenges that I faced coming into my position. Some of those being attributed to COVID, obviously, and the lack of information that we had as a program due to, several of those factors. One of the biggest ones being that a lot of our programming turned virtual, and we had a drop off in participation rates with a lot of our youth at the beginning of that. So one of my biggest endeavors in coming into this program and coming into a new area for me to work within was understanding our demographic of American Indian youth and who we were serving. So I literally picked up the phone and emailed every contact at every school, unified school district that I could to make those connections. And one of the biggest challenges was trying to find out with so much school turnover within the school education system, who those people were that we needed to connect with on behalf of our youth. So it took a few months for my staff and I to really do that. But the positive in doing those reach outs and building and rebuilding those personal connections, a lot of them having been lost because of COVID. I'm happy to report that last year, our program reached out to an estimated 4,325 American Indian youth within 19 unified high school districts here in Maricopa County. And that is an estimate. We have several school districts that didn't even provide us numbers last year. So we were really happy to know that demographic. So what we were able to do in our department was really take a lot of the feedback, the notes, the surveys from the time before I came into my role. And my current team and I really looked at that data. And we also were able to improve upon our methods within our grant and the structure of our grant deliverables based on that to streamline the programming and the needs, having been through COVID, and then within the last year, slowly coming out of COVID and turning a lot of our programming back into in-person events on a COVID-friendly, COVID-safe level, you know, smaller in-person workshops, events. We are, as Warren mentioned, a college and career-focused program. So one of the positives that was being able to come back in person into some of the school systems with my team actually doing in-person mentoring to our demographic. So we created a curriculum that is Indigenous based, and it's not your typical what you think of mentoring. Our curriculum focuses more on having them think about what they want to do with their life after high school. It ties into a few of our other program grant deliverables. And what we have them do is by the very last session, we actually have them create vision boards. So every lesson in the mentoring program leads up to that. So those are just a few of the takeaways that we did. The biggest lesson for us being learned that these types of grants are adjustable, and we have to also accommodate the needs of the demographic in our community.
Great. Thank you. Thank you both, Oklahoma State Department of Education, and congratulations, Phoenix Indian Center, for 75 years of work. That's amazing. Um, I just wanted to thank you for for starting the conversation, and now I want to open it up to everyone else to share. Come off of mute and share your lessons learned. I see in the chat that we're getting like yes, yes. Transition has been difficult, turnover, making sure that there's transition between one staff to another. Um, but anyone else want to share lessons learned?
I'd like to share, Olani.
Yes, please go ahead.
This is Clara Martinez, and I'm meeting here for the Gold Belt Heritage Foundation in Juneau, and we have a 2018 that's ending this year. So thank you very much for that funding. We've done a lot of great things, and one thing that we learned in the throughout this grant is that the services that we provided really were a grounding for our student community. We did intensive outreach and were able to switch over to the virtual education and keep providing cultural and academic programming, and it mattered a lot. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, and I'm glad to hear that you were able to continue your program and your services. And I love that word grounding. Just sort of having a place for kids to be able to engage in their culture and continue to engage with each other, even as we went through the pandemic. So, thank you. Others, lessons learned. It can be anything from administrative to maybe something you learned different about, maybe a program or a strategy within the program.
Alana, can I give a kudos to Keita
Yes, please.
One of the lessons learned, and I saw that on some of the chat, is that you're not prepared for someone to leave. School teachers do lesson plans. She created a guide that she's now sending out to all of our schools with it's a guide on what we're expecting from them and what they will be expecting from us. And I'm old school. I think paper and pencil is still great. But when she put this together, I thought, oh my goodness, because one of the schools we're going to next week when I get back from the national board is a brand new superintendent. Not just the fact that the Native American manager is different, but the superintendent's different in both of the schools that we will be working with. So her guide is something that if either one of us are not there, someone that takes our place can pick up and they know. So I think that's really important to make sure that you have I'm going to call it a lesson plan or a guide that's not just at the top level at the State Department of Education, but it's actually in the hands of those that are accountable. And so kudos to her. She did an amazing job with it.
That's great. I mean, I think you're right, for the people, the principals and the people on the ground to have that information. I know when they're coming into a position, it's trying to get a handle on everything. And so being able to provide that is a great tool. I also see Jared chiming in and sharing in the chat. You never know where grant hired employees will rise. As a former member of that cohort, I've seen this firsthand. Building capacity within our schools, yes, is an important ongoing process. Very thankful for the NYCP opportunity. Yeah, and really when you're building capacity within your schools, you're also building capacity within a community, right? And so you never know where, like you said, Jared, like where a employee will rise and what they'll be passionate about. So thanks for sharing that. I know a lot of times we talk about growing your own, right? Um, whether it's teachers, program coordinators, maybe even youth workers, working with youth, growing your own. Uh, Anyone
Alani, I
else?
think Dara had her hand up.
Okay, yes, please, Dara, go ahead.
Hey, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the lessons learned. I actually have a question for some of the other grantees in regards to the conversation that we're having around turnover. It's really helpful to hear all of your experiences and some of your best practices. For us, we've had turnover as well, and it hasn't stopped our programming at all, but our turnover in the business office has been really challenging as we're working with a new leadership in making sure that the processes that were in place before are still being maintained in terms of drawdowns and communications and all of that kind of stuff. And for me, that's been a challenge because that wasn't my role with our prior business office leader. It was really, I guess, a little bit more separate. And I'm wondering if anyone has any lessons learned about best practices with your business office and how to support that transition.
Anyone want to share?
Keita, I want you to address that because you can't be separate from the business office. One of the downfalls of public education for years was that finance didn't talk to curriculum and curriculum didn't talk to finance. Well, guess what? Everybody gets audited. And if the curriculum individuals are not spending the money correctly, it causes so many problems. And I spent a lot of time. Keita actually met with our finance people because we inherited a breakdown. It wasn't because we didn't like each other. The communication was the problem. She learned something as of yesterday on contracts that we were making it too hard. So Keita, would you just address that? Because I think she sat down with them and we walked through everything that we're supposed to do, making sure prior to sending any information to Donna, we matched. That was huge. because the left and the right hand were not always the same prior, but I did finance for a long time at a school district, even though I was doing federal programs. Kita, are you still on? I'm looking quickly, 35.
Yes.
I think that
Can you
was
hear me?
huge.
Yeah, I think of trying to getting everybody together and understanding and painting the big picture of what we actually need as far as reporting, what they actually need from us, sitting there in the what I hope in the future is to at least have this meeting as not like a quarterly or monthly thing, but as much as we need it as possible. So for me, making sure that everybody's on the same page, we all have the same information, they understand what our needs are, and at the same time, me understanding how their processes work, I think was very vital in getting the information and reporting that we needed to get to Donna sent in a timely fashion. And I think from this point forward, making sure that all the offices that we work with, we're all in this together. We're all on the same sheet of paper, and everyone understands what their roles are, and I'll be able to better do my job and better and be able to, in whatever manner that they're able to get their job done, I want to be able to present things to them in a way that they'll understand so I can get what I need from each of the offices. So whatever works for you, maybe having monthly meetings, having a shared folder where everyone can pick from a shared location, the information that's needed. I would say as much as you can, make sure everyone understands what's going on, the information that's needed, and how it's going to be provided.
You have to talk the same language. Finance has to understand the language that you're using in implementation of the grant, but at the same time, and a good example was the superintendent we visited with on yesterday, and I went over supplanting with him. I went over the bidding. I went over allowable cost. Well, that's the curriculum side, but then he has to go back and enforce it from the finance side. And when we pay the invoice, we have to match our budget. And that's why her handbook, and I think somebody already wants it, you know, and schools by nature of the beast, supplanting is hard for them to understand, especially with all this extra money coming in with ESSER and all. It's still real, and it's not going to go away now, but you have to talk the same language. And finance and curriculum has not always done that, but that was the purpose of Kita's handbook out to the schools. But now that she's talked to finance, she can explain what they want. We don't want to be late with our claims. We want our claims to be correct because we need that money. Money flows through state departments and schools don't have time to wait for us to pay them 3 months later. It needs to be in a timely manner. But it's sitting down, but you sit down now. Don't wait till you have a problem, because that's what we tend to do. We shoot from the hip when we have a problem. If you start up first and early, you'll have less issues as you process your claims. Hey, Keita, everybody wants to see your guide. I'm sorry, but it was good. She really did a good job.
Thank you. I know a lot of you have had transitions in your fiscal office or have had challenges with sort of communicating back and forth. Is there anyone else who wants to share for Dara what they've done in closing the gap, I guess, between program and fiscal? No. Okay. Well, I do see in the chat that some people are using Teams. I think Jackie had mentioned about sharing the information and having it accessible, and so I guess Roxanne, they're using Teams, so that can help program and fiscal people be able to get the information they need. So that's great. Um, Anyone else want to share a lessons learned on another topic, another maybe area of lessons? Oh, yeah, Sarah's saying, really getting your fiscal people to attend the talking circles, the TA events, and even the office hours. Um, Giving them some context, some larger context would be helpful. Also, I worked with a grantee who knew they were transitioning out, and so there was some overlap time between when they were still the project director and the fiscal person was still on board, and a new project director was coming in, and so we actually sat down and went through with the current and the new entering project director as well as the fiscal person who was new, to sort of get a handle on the actual grant and go through, requirements around budget revisions and um, APR reporting. And so it's great to have a time when there's maybe overlap where you can do some onboarding of new staff. And we're always open to sit with your fiscal staff if they come on sort of mid grant and miss, you know, um, maybe some information to sit down and go over the requirements on the fiscal side for any reports. You can sign that. You can apply or sign up for or schedule a coaching session, and that's when we did it. So that's really helpful to have some overlap and onboarding. Okay, if there's nothing else, oh, okay. Justin just shared something in the chat from the collecting data was a key component that drove our project. Yes. Additionally, we found that some legal documents need to be created in collaboration. And those, I don't know, Justin, if you can't come off of mute, but if you can, I'd love to hear sort of how the data being collected drove your project, as well as what those legal documents were. Was that a MOU or a data sharing agreement? Yeah. And Allison is saying yes, she
Can you,
agreed. But
can you hear
go
me?
ahead. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so in terms of data, we found it very important to um, collect grades, attendance. We also looked at, student participation in the programs that we provided. Being an outside entity within our public school district was a little tough. And so that's why part of the reason we created a waiver to get access to our student grades and files and things like that, that were outside the scope of FERPA. So, and so through that and having, parent signature, we were able to access all that information and request it from the school. But prior to that, we were not allowed to gather any of that information. And so, if we found that attendance was becoming an issue, we would start changing our program to reflect that, to kind of focus in on that. Same with certain courses, if they were really struggling in English or math, we changed our program to kind of support those programs as well. It also, the data allowed us to work with teachers as well. So we provided a lot of professional development opportunities within the school as well, whether it was conferences or creating our own professional development. And so those MOUs and those waivers really became very useful for us, since we don't have a school of our own
Right.
to implement our program.
Great. Great. Thanks for sharing.
Is the Muskogee Nation on here? I thought I saw them.
I don't.
Yes, I am.
Larissa, did you share with them? Because I think the Muskogee Nation finally completed their contract with us at the State Department to see information on the students across Oklahoma.
Well, unfortunately, we haven't completed it.
Okay, but it's
still-
close, I think.
Yeah, we have to
Yes.
still, so there's been a transition within our Attorney General's office. The one who was working on the student agreement, he took another position. So now we're trying to figure out where that agreement is, and then it should be fine though. And then we'll have to send it to our legislative branch and then they'll have to approve it. So we still have those parts that we haven't completed yet.
Might tell them what you're going to get to see. It's going to be really good for the nation.
Yeah, so we're excited that we'll be able to access the wave and see where our Muskogee Creek students are throughout the state of Oklahoma, and just basically just get more information on what's going on and seeing students' needs. And I think that'll definitely be helpful in then figuring out like if there are issues, like what resources we have, or even just highlighting the great things that our Native students or Muskogee citizens are doing. I think that'll be a big thing too, is just showing all the academic success that our students are having in public schools in the state of Oklahoma. So I think that's going to be really exciting to see.
Congratulations. That's great to hear. And it sounds like it's going to be across the state. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you'll probably be able to really use that data to help students. So congratulations. And that's talk about a transition that you can't even control, right? The Attorney General is switching over this. I mean, all at different levels. I know all of us have been experiencing sort of transition of staff and the onboarding of new staff and getting people up to speed on the work that was, going on. So that's ongoing, and I think it'll be for a little while. That'll be an ongoing thing. Great, you guys.
Hello,
Go ahead.
this is Elsie from the Yurok tribe, and I just wanted to take a moment about it's not necessarily a mind-blowing lesson learned, but just taking a moment to acknowledge all the work that's being done, but also a lesson learned. I was with the students this summer during our internship program, and just seeing the joy and the happiness that those students had and the activities that they're able to partake in because of these grants, it means a lot to them. So that should mean a lot to everybody on this call. Thank you for your work, and just know that the students enjoy it. They enjoy being around their culture. They enjoy the help. They enjoy the academic support, but they just enjoy that person in whatever form you are offering that extra help. So thank you for all your guys' work.
So true, so true. And I know, I mean, I'll make a little plug for Donna. I know that she is very interested in sort of collecting maybe any, flyers or videos or, some success stories that you've encountered, you know, reflecting the joy and the impact that you're making on Native students across the nation. And so she is very interested in collecting any of that. So if you want to share that with her, so that she can share that with others to show again the great and important impact you folks are making within Native education. Is that right, Donna? I mean,
That is exactly right. I have a lot of, quantitative data, and I love the quantitative data. I like looking at it. I like seeing the numbers and how we are doing. And as you know, your FY18 cohort group, you guys are doing phenomenal, even during COVID. So I look at those numbers and I'm putting all that data together, but I like the qualitative as well. So if you have any type of qualitative data you want to send me, whether it's a short video, if it's something you've created, curriculum you've created, books. Allison sent me a couple of books when she came up here to visit in DC a few months ago, and it's probably a lot of months ago, right, Allison? It's been since like yesterday, but it's been a while.
It was February, March, yeah.
Yeah, it was a while ago. So anything like that, you guys have flyers, pictures, even videos or statements from your students and how NYCP has impacted them. Please share that with me. And I know you have some of that in your APR, and if you don't mind, I may pull some of that information out and share with others as well. But
yeah, because it's really important to be able to, for Donna to be able to have that so she can communicate to the broader sort of education field, as well as share that with other Native education, to just really show some really best practices and the impact that you folks are making. Awesome. Again, thank you folks for sharing. You can keep sharing in the chat, but with the time going, I want to move on to getting into the final performance report. Again, because this will be the only final performance report technical assistance we will be providing sort of in mass, in group. You're always welcome to contact the OIE technical assistance team, and you can schedule a coaching session and we can go over specifics for you. But this is going to be sort of our broad tech TA for final performance report. Again, you are definitely, if you are fiscal year 17 and your NCE is ending, you definitely want to stay on and go through this. If you are fiscal year 2018 and you are ending your grant on time for as of September 30th, you definitely want to stay on for this training. Also, you know, maybe you're going for NCE, you might want to sort of get a sense about what is coming as it relates to the final performance report. You're welcome to stay on if you have other things, and you know you're sort of not ready for this. You won't hurt my feelings if you leave, because this is very directed. But you can by all means stay on. So let's get rolling. So we're going to focus on now on your final performance report, or FPR. We're going to go over where you do the report and what to report, and then offer hopefully some helpful tips along the way to try to make your reporting experience as smooth as possible. So right here you can see that this is, I'm sure you're very familiar with your G5 screenshot. Just a little bit of reminders. You want to make sure that you are checking the information on help desk, making sure that there is no time, you know, based on your scheduling that the system is going to be down. You want to make sure you are, if you do have any questions related to G5 and that system, that you are clicking in and connecting to the help desk. Also, you want to make sure you're noting the time zone of the operations, because you might be on Central Time or Alaska Time, and G5 is geared toward Eastern Time. So you want to make sure you're noting that and then making the adjustments. So the ED 524 reporting forms are the documents for your final performance report. Now, maybe you've had other grants that you have actually done an FPR form, and so maybe you already have that form. What you do want to do is check to make sure that it is an up-to-date form. And so you want to make sure that at the top where the circle is right there, that you are seeing that date of 7/31/2024. Anything older than that, you want to make sure you have the most up-to-date form. Excuse me. If you're unsure about the form, you can always visit the link that's here on the screen and be able to get the most up-to-date copy. So we're going to walk through each of the required sections, including the cover sheet, executive summary, and sections A, B, and C. We're going to be sure to highlight the particulars of the final performance report. It's going to look very similar to your APR, but there are some things that are unique to, excuse me, sorry, unique to the FPR. And let me go ahead and I'm going to put in a link here in the chat so you can access that form. So here are the various reporting periods. This what you want to do is the beginning of the reporting period is always going to be October 1st. Now, and then the ending will be September 30th. Now, the actual year depends on your cohort. And so, for example, if you're 2017, you can see the beginning of the year when your first year began, and then the ending would be the year 5. So you want to make sure you're adjusting. If you're a 2018 cohort, then again, you want to make sure that you are starting October 1st 2018, and that the ending will be September 30th, 2022. So the FPR spans the entire life of the grant, not just the final year. Your grant is operating under, if your grant was currently operating under a no-cost extension, you will use the final date of your NCE reporting date. So, for example, if you are 2017 NCE and your end of your NCE ends on September 30th, 2022, that will be your end reporting date. It's helpful to think of your reporting period as the lifespan of this discretionary grant. So that's really how you want to look at it. So knowing your specific reporting period is really important for both your GEPRA and project measures. You're going to have to report on this for each year of your grant. And the ratios that you report in your final performance report should be the same as previously submitted annual performance report. So you're going to want to get your hands on previous APR, so going all the way back to your first year. Now, I know there's been a lot of transitions in your organization. You want to make sure you have your hands on all of the past APRs. You can either ask your program director to go on to G5 in order to access. If you still have, if you're maybe, you don't have access, your project director left and they no longer have access to G5, you can contact your program officer, Donna, to also get assistance with being able to acquire your previous APRs. So you are not recreating or recounting or retallying any of the data from past years. In fact, you are just basically copying and pasting those numbers. And this will make your whole process much easier by getting your hands on those previous APRs. You don't want to make up new numbers and put them into the Section A or even into the budget. If you are new to the position, and this is kind of what I said already, you do want to get your hands on those APRs. Again, if you have any difficulty with being able to access that through G5, you can contact your program officer, Donna Bustle, or even the OIE TA Technical Assistance Team. So now we're going to go over the cover sheet and the executive summary. Again, you're going to see these, they look very familiar to APR, but there are some nuances as it relates to the FPR. So right here, you're going to want to make sure again that you are utilizing the correct FPR performance report. You can see again, it's very similar. So here in item 1, this is where you want to enter your PR number. I'm sure you're very familiar with that. You want to make sure that you include the entire number. And so usually it starts with a letter, and usually it's S. You want to make sure that you include that S as well as all of the other letters and numbers that come after that. I know a lot of you may be operating multiple grants or have maybe even launching new grants. You want to make sure you are referencing the correct grant number. And then if we look at this item number 7, you want to make sure that you are entering the full reporting period for your grant. Again, when we say full reporting period, you are talking about the whole lifespan of your grant, and we went over that earlier. So from the first year of the grant to the ending of your grant, whether it's September 30th, whether it's an on-time ending or maybe even the ending of your NCE. And then we want to look at item 8 here, has several sub-items and is about budget expenditures. So I'm going to go really slow on this because it's got some nuances to it. There are 3 line items under 8B is the expenditures for the single current budget period. So basically that's essentially the expenditures for the final fiscal year of your grant. 8A is expenditures from the previous budget period immediately preceding the current budget period. So again, so if you're in your third year of the grant, 8A is you are reporting on maybe the second year of the grant, the previous, immediate preceding current grant period. And then line 8C is the grand total from all of the years of the grant's operation. This is not an A plus B, which equals line C. This just includes all of the expenditures from previous year grant.
Oleana, can I stop you?
Sure.
Okay, so our no cost extension ended. I don't have a current budget period. I'm a little confused about what to put right there.
That's a great question. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah so that I don't confuse you more.
And I apologize, my internet is a little wonky, and so it cut out in the middle of your question. Could you just repeat it right quick? I'm sorry.
Right, okay, so we're a 2017 grantee. We had a no cost extension and it ended June 30th. I don't have a current budget. I'm just preparing my final report. I don't know what I'm supposed to put for 8B.
Yes. So what you do for what's considered current versus previous, your current typically is going to actually run the entire length of your no cost extension. So your no cost extension went from October 1st of 2021 to the end of June 2022. So that would be considered your current. And then for 8C, you'll do all the way from the very first day of your grant through the last day of your NCE. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Sarah. I thought that was the answer, but I didn't want to give you a wrong answer. So now I learned something new. Thanks. Okay, so let's see. So for item number 9, this is this is related to your indirect cost rate information. You want to make sure you are putting the current date for your current indirect cost rate agreement. Sometimes indirect cost rates expire sort of mid, your final year. So you want to make sure you are including the most up-to-date indirect cost rate dates. Oh, sorry. I got to go back one. Okay, there we go. So the next section is item is number 10, and so it asks about human subject and IRB. You want to be able, you're going to go ahead and check NA on that item. And then item 11 is last on the page, but it's very important. This is about your data privacy and security. So if you check yes, or you will check yes, you also want to make sure you are including as an attachment the corresponding policy and evidence that these securities are in place. And most of the times it's in a policy regarding, retainment of records or security of records. So you go ahead and attach that to this report. Okay, then on the back of this form, we have item number 12. And this is really about your performance measure status. So in APRs in the past, you were able to maybe put no and say, you're going to provide the information later on. But because this is your FPR, everyone will check yes, because you should have complete data. And you should not be reporting 999s or zeros. There should be actually numbers that you're putting into your section A, and we'll go over that in just a bit. So that should all be checked as yes. And then again, here's our authorized representative. So you want to make sure that you have your authorized representative sign this. It must be signed in order for it to be a completed cover sheet. Now you might want to, once you can get into G5, when the 120 days begins and you're getting in, or you're at your G5 opens up and you're able to access the FPR, you want to be able to maybe go in, fill out the cover sheet, and hand this over to the authorized representative. We know that a lot of times your authorized representatives are heads of your tribe or CEOs of your organization or executive directors. They've got a lot on their plate, and so getting this to them before you kind of get into your maybe Section A and Section B would hopefully help in making sure you get this in a timely fashion and are able to submit your FPR on time. That's
I have
just,
a question about that.
yeah, go ahead.
The entire length of the grant, we had the same superintendent of our school district, but that person retired this summer. We have a new superintendent. So is there something I need to complete to have the new superintendent sign this form?
Yes, actually you do. Was it
Yeah,
Carmen?
and that's what I was going to interject there is if you're, so it's called the certifying official on our G5, and that's your authorized representative. And anytime you have changes, as soon as you have a change, email me so I can get that changed in G5. And Mandy, I don't know, we may have done that, but you will email me who your new certifying official is, and I can get that changed in G5 for you. You can also go into G5 and put in a request for that change, but it's easier just to email me and let me know the name and contact information of your new certifying official. So
I'll do that today. Thank you.
okay, thank you. And for everybody else, as soon as you know, if you have a certifying official change, make sure and you email me their name, their contact information. If you're a project director, project director, and it's this, you're not going to be the one, you're changing or you're going to change before this FPR is due, even an APR, please email me all of the information. What we've had happen in the past is that the project director left and their information was still in G5 and the new project director couldn't get in. The new project director can't really tell me that they're changing because I need that from the two official people on the grant. So it has to be whoever's there already. And we had one who the certifying official left and the project director. So we didn't have anybody and we had to reach out to the person that left and have them write a memo saying that they left and who the new people were going to be. Because these GANs that we have to be changed. That's something that's important that has to happen. So if you have any changes, please let me know as soon as possible.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Donna. And talk about a transition. I mean, you might want to have, that be a part of sort of your exit interview or whatever process you have when somebody is switching positions or leaving the organization, to make sure you get that before they go. Awesome. So now when we look at the executive summary, you can see right there, again, it's the same as far as 1 to 2 pages. The difference really is that in an FPR, you were really talking about the entire life of the grant. And so in all these areas, whether it's achievement or progress, challenges, the goals and objectives that you weren't able to meet, and even the contribution of the project, you really want to think in terms of the lifespan of your grant and speak to that. Not necessarily have to go through every year, and maybe that's one way you want to organize it. But again, because it's 1 to 2 pages, really sort of pull out the highlights, maybe some of the lessons learned that you shared today, and include that in your executive summary, and really sort of think in terms of the entire lifespan of the grant. And also, I want to, this would be really helpful and beneficial. And I guess, again, we talked about this earlier, including the contributions that your project has made to research, knowledge, practice, and our policy. This is really a crucial piece that we will really be wanting to look for. It helps both the program officer as well as the larger OIE understand the impact that you're making beyond. I mean, making the impact with students is amazing, but being able to share maybe some of the research and knowledge and maybe best practices and even maybe some policy changes that you've made with whether it's within the tribe or a school district, or even on the state level, and to share that, that's really important. But again, we really want to just focus on the lifespan of the grant. Now we're going to move over to section A. You're going to see this looks very, very familiar. This will contain a bulk of your information. The purpose of this chart is to really demonstrate the progress that your project has made. You will, unlike in previous APRs, you will be reporting on each year of the grant. And I'm going to move to the next slide to show you what that looks like. Again, you want to make sure in your, in your performance measure, when you are citing GEPRA, you are using the grant-specific GEPRA measures, as well as with your project measures. Those should not change. So again, you're going back to your previous APR and cutting and pasting that exact language and reporting that there. You want to make sure you're selecting the appropriate measure type. So if it's GEPRA, you make sure that you're, selecting GEPRA, as well as project, you're selecting PROJ for project. So let's get into it. So again, and you must be very familiar with your GEPRA measures. So you want to make sure that it's the exact GEPRA measure language. You want to make sure that you are clicking and checking the measure as GEPRA. And then you folks know that you are only reporting on the actual ratio. We should see no other numbers in any of the other columns here, only in the actual ratio column. As it relates to your project measures, again, you want to make sure you are copying and pasting the exact measure from previous APRs, and you are selecting your measure type as PROJ or project measure. And in this area, you should be reporting on your ratio for both the target and then the actual. Okay, the raw number, you should not be putting anything in that column. And the percentage will automatically, I'm sure you folks are more than aware of, that it auto-calculates. So moving on to explanation of progress. Again, I know you folks are all very familiar about the explanation of progress. You want to make sure that you are providing both quantitative and qualitative data. You want to make sure that you are sharing your evaluation methods and how data is analyzed. Also briefly describe related activities and accomplishments. If you were not able to meet a measure, then you want to provide an explanation as to why. This is very important and will serve as a good record of your progress so that it can be detailed here as you can. You want to be as detailed as you can. We know sometimes space is limited. If there's more information you want to provide, again, you always have section C to expound on and provide more information. This, in your explanation of progress, there may be some similarities, but it should be different from your executive summary. And so you should not be sort of copying and pasting what you have in your executive summary into this explanation of progress. There may be some elements that are the same, but they should be different enough that you're maybe providing new information in your explanation of progress. Again, I'm sure you're very familiar with that. The GEPRA measures help OIE and the department to see the progress of your project and each grant program as a whole. Data should be reported for each implementation year. So you will have information for each implementation year, and we'll get to that in just a bit. Again, I'm sure and you probably have this memorized, your GEPRA measures. Again, you're going to want to use the exact language that is here. So let's go and look at what are we doing when it comes to the section A. So here's a sample of an FPR. As you can see, we are reporting on a GEPRA measure for all right, this is 5 years. And so you can see year 1 here at the top, year 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, all the previous years should be exactly the same as the information provided on the previous APRs. There's those years. Again, identifying this as GEPRA, and then going ahead and putting in this ratio number directly from your previous APRs. And then providing an explanation of progress that again summarizes your entire grant. Oh, sorry. So you want to get, well, I've done that already. Let's move on. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a project. So for the project one, it's the same thing. Again, you want to use the exact language. You want to identify the year all the way down for the same measure. You want to go ahead and make sure you're selecting project measure. And then again, both for the target and the actual performance ratio, making sure that they reflect the same numbers reflected in previous APRs. And then, of course, entering your explanation of progress. Are there any questions about that? Okay, let's move on to section B and C. So this is a section where you will use to provide a narrative for your spending for, again, the entire lifespan of your grant. For this section, you may want to review your past APRs for those highlights and relevant information about the budget over the life of the grant. So, definitely don't need to recreate everything new. Go back and look and pull out highlights and summarize that for this section for the entire lifespan of the grant. This section should expand as you type the form. So here again, it's helpful to go ahead and craft this in a separate document and then copy and paste that into G5. And in any of the sections that you are doing some heavy writing, for example, back in the executive summary, you probably want to do this on a Word document or on another document so that you can write and edit and then copy and paste that and put that into when you're submitting into G5. Because we know G5 times out like in 15 minutes, whether or not, you're moving through the screen or not. So you want to make sure, you don't do this fabulous writing on either your executive summary, your budget information, or even your section C, and you lose it because G5 times out. So again, keep that writing on a separate document and copy and paste that. You will use this section to write a narrative that really describes the challenges that you faced budget-wise and how that has affected your budget. For example, in the pandemic, we know sometimes there was difficulty in hiring, maybe schools were shut down. So in this section, you also want to share some of the challenges and how they impacted your ability to expend your funds. These are all things that you want to make sure that you're including and really be specific here. So here we're getting to some of the specific information you want to make sure you're including. You want to make sure that you are talking about your frequency of your G5 drawdowns. Sometimes you might have started off with sort of, G5 drawdowns fluctuating and not being sort of happening in a consistent way. And maybe over the time of the grant, you created a system in which you were drawing down quarterly or monthly. Like share that, how that happened and the adjustments that you made with your fiscal office. You also want to talk about how maybe you were tracking the expenditures independent of your budget office, and maybe also share, I know we talked about this earlier, about how maybe you came together with your fiscal office to work on, sort of, what do they call it? Reconciling your what you have in your report and what they have on their fiscal. Your grant dollars must be obligated by the final date of the grant program. So again, if you are ending on 9/30, then you want to make sure you have all your funds obligated by 9/30, as well as if your NCE is ending, you want to make sure all your grant funds are obligated. If you have any unexpended funds remaining on the last day of your grant or your NCE, you want to be able to discuss in your budget narrative report how much funding you have remaining and why. So, for example, there's some examples there, maybe for a salary for someone, you thought you were going to start them on maybe November 1st, but you weren't able to hire them to maybe the end of December or the end of November. You want to share why you might have some remaining in personnel, as well as maybe there was training funds that you didn't utilize, or whatever it may be. We want to be able to provide that information.
Yeah, Alani, just so in order to have a closeout and a successful closeout, really make sure you're noting this in this FPR, what Alani just said. And if you have if you zeroed out, I need that as well in this budget explanation, that you have zero available balance, that you zeroed out everything. And however much, if you have, $54,222.06, I need it down to the cent as well, and an explanation of why those funds may still be there. But yes, we need that for a successful closeout. If it's not in the FPR, I will be asking you for that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Donna. So again, you want to star that information, make sure you have it in there. And then the other key piece is your budget is final as of the submission of the report. And that you confirm, you want to make sure you have the statement in your budget narrative, that we confirm that we have no outstanding obligations for this project that will require additional drawdown activity. And there again, you would put your final balance. So you can go ahead, and I will copy and paste this into the chat. And I want you to go ahead and use this, let me see, exact language.
Yep, and this is what I was talking about. If you don't have this, I will come back and ask, and we can't successfully close out your grant until we have a statement like this and some of, the FPR, and but this is very, very important.
Okay. All right, there you have it in the chat. So go ahead and copy and paste that. Put that someplace where you'll remember, and make sure you have access to that. Okay, moving on to section C. So this is the final section, and this is where you really get to include maybe any information you weren't able to provide in your executive summary, or the section A, explanation of progress, or even in your narrative, section B. This is a place also, a lot of you include photos and student work samples, news clippings, maybe some even, if you created an assessment, some people have included that. This is sort of like the fun part of reading through here, particularly when you folks share some of the really great work that you're doing. So take the time to really think about this. Again, this is thinking about the lifespan of your organization. For example, the workbook or the information that Kita created and provided, that could be something that could be shared as an additional information in section C. And so you can go ahead and attach that as a PDF, and then we can take a look at it. The other thing you want to make sure in the narrative section that you are including is to really document any success stories, even challenges that maybe you weren't able to discuss previously, or even status of partnerships, talking about any new partnerships or maybe partnerships that have grown or transitioned into, you know, something else, maybe more meaningful or more embedded in your organization. You also want to use this space to draw conclusions about success, even maybe something you would think are maybe best practices, any also unanticipated outcomes or benefits that you weren't planning for, but you know, it came about. Again, new partnerships, some maybe amazing impacts on students. You want to go ahead and share that there too. Also, we would recommend, you know, you share any advice to other educators that may be interested in your project. Again, Donna reads through all of these, and she will definitely, as you can see, picks through them and wants to be able to share, you know, sort of the impact that you're doing with other people, and other grantees or either other people in the Native education field. Also, if applicable, describe your plans to continue the project. Maybe you've developed sort of a sustainability plan and you are going to be continuing. Maybe you've embedded the capacity within your organization, and so you will be continuing the work. Yesterday, we met with one grantee who was already talking about how they've embedded this beyond and will be continuing to provide the services beyond the ending of the grant. Also, we created this reporting tool that allows OIE to collect some sort of demographic data, also more sort of pointed data that they can use for both thinking about future technical assistance or even the future of the program. So we really want to encourage you to include this APR reporting tool. Again, this tool has all different kinds of information. It requests a lot of demographic and really program specific questions. I know you folks are familiar with the form from the APR, and so I won't go through that considering our time. I just wanted to provide some important reminders. Project directors will be notified as soon as G5 is open and given your deadline for report entry. So your FPRs are due 120 days after the final date of your grant or no cost extension. And so really you want to see, you know, if you are going for a 12-month no cost extension, you are going to be ending September 30th, 2023. You want to sort of count in those 120 calendar days and start to backward map to make sure you are prepared to submit your FPR. Only the grant director of record will be able to access that in G5. So again, if there's during your NCE period, if there's any changes in project director, you want to make sure you are getting that request in to Donna and making sure you can make that transition because you don't want to be stuck at the end not being able to access it. Also, G5 will not accept reports after the reporting deadline. So once you hit that end of 120 days, it will not accept reports, just like your APR. And you will not be able to go into G5 after the reporting deadline to revise your report. Are there any questions? I know I sort of breezed through that really fast. Again, this is being recorded. If you want, when you are have the time and maybe you're gearing up to start to think about organizing for your FPR, you might want to come back to the recording. It will be on the OIE YouTube channel, and you can just walk through this. Also, you can always reach out to us if you want us to look at anything or ask questions. Oh, yes, okay, great. So yes, question about submitting early, yes, but you need to wait for the G5 to open, yes. Awesome, thanks. Okay, so here's just a little heads up on future events. We can go ahead, let me go ahead and do the poll, the end of the event poll, while I go through the future events. And so again, even though many of you are going to be doing no cost extension that will be maybe going on for another year, the expectation is that you are still participating in talking circles as well as the project directors meeting and office hours. Individual coaching is open to you, and so you still have the ability to access all of that. But please, we want to encourage you to stay um, in touch and stay engaged in the talking circles and office hours. You can see the schedule moving forward here. So NYCP talking circles will be happening on third Thursdays. You can see the time again, that's Eastern time for these months. So we won't be having them every month, but these are the months that are planned for talking circles. Also, our office hours will continue to be on every fourth Thursday. The only thing is in September, it is actually on the, I'm sorry, on the 22nd. Um, so if you have any questions, you can just sort of log in and or just listen in like many of you do. We got the poll going, so thank you again. Please take that poll. If you have any questions, you can always, again, reach out to your NYCP program Officer Donna Bussell. There's her email as well as your OIE technical assistance team. We're always here to help and make sure that you have a successful, whether it's your final performance report or your NCE term. We want to make sure that you're expending all your funds and meeting all of your measures. Thank you so much for joining us. We are 3 minutes early. If you have any questions, I can go ahead and take questions, or we can end early and you can go
Well,
about the rest of your day. Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say, for those of you who are ending your grant, your last day is going to be September 30th of this 2022. Your FPR will be due January 30th of 2023 by the close of business Eastern time. And I will have the everything ready in G5 probably, I would say closer to November. And you can turn it in early, like Sarah and Olani both said, but make sure you have everything. Make sure you have every data, all the data that you need, and make sure everything is completed because, you know, once you turn it in, it's with me and, you know, we'll have to do any type of other updates through email. So make sure you have everything before you submit it.
Great.
And
Thanks.
somebody asked for the Section C tool, so I did pop that in the chat for you, but we will also follow up via email with these slides, a link to the recording and all of that.
Awesome.
And the Section C tool is optional, but please fill it out. That's so important. We use that. We look at the data on that and we use it, you know, to help us guide you and to help future NYCP grantees. And so it is important. We do look at that data and or data, however you want to pronounce it. But we do look at that. So please, please, I know it says optional, but it's important.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Okay, well, again, thank you all for joining. If there's any more questions, we can stay on for a minute more.